Okay. So I'm told to eat a lot of healthy fats. Now that's all the rage. Used to be not cool. In the early 90s, whatever, fat was bad, sugar was good. Now fat is good. Make you burn more fat. I eat fat, I look good, I happy. That's what we hear, right? It's true. It's true. A lot of caveats here. What's the best type of fat I could eat then? If I know I should be having more fat than sugar. Well, I know that unsaturated fat is good, right? I know that saturated fat is bad. I know that trans fat is bad. Yes. But what if the trans fat's natural? Comes in food. Because some foods, very few, naturally contain trans fats. They're not nearly as bad as the ones that are processed. Long story short, yes, unsaturated are typically the best. The best are marine fats, EPA and DHA. Get their name because, well, they come from fatty fish, like salmon, mackerel, tuna, herring, sardines, anchovies, trout, things like that. Right, some other shellfish, stuff like that. But the fatty fish are really good. So those are definitely really good fats for your brain and for your heart. We know that much. All right, when it comes to saturated fat, well, there's no correlation between saturated fat intake and heart disease. Okay, so that's a good thing. But saturated fat is not as good as the unsaturated fats in general because it could contribute, if you have excessive amounts of it, to overgrowth of harmful bacteria in the gut, which obviously is bad, right? And can block LDL receptors, low-density lipoprotein receptors, on the liver surface. And so the liver can't take the LDL cholesterol, we know bad cholesterol, right? And then filter it out of the blood and process it, and so it could build up. Okay, but it's not associated with heart disease. So is that really that bad? Trans fats. When you guys see trans fats, they're typically coming from processed foods. Hydrogenated vegetable oils, namely, like soybean oil, is often partially or completely hydrogenated. What is hydrogenated? Hydrogen, aided. They aided the fat with more hydrogens, right? Because an unsaturated fat is a nice kinky chain. A nice hydrocarbon, we could say, kinky chain. That means it has hydrogens and carbons. So the carbons are in the middle, right? And it gets kinky because there's some double bonds between the carbons. And then there's hydrogens attached to all those. And if you guys took chemistry, you know you need a certain number of bonds for a compound to be stable, right? And so it has these hydrogens, but it has less hydrogens, does an unsaturated fat, than a saturated fat. Well, why is that? Saturated fat is linear, straight line. Single bond between the carbons. So that extra bond, that double bond that was between the carbons in an unsaturated fat is now taken away, and they bind a hydrogen to it instead. They aid the fat with hydrogens to make it more linear in structure, like a saturated fat and solid at room temperature. And because it has a longer shelf life, it's more stable. And obviously that's not healthy. So before we get into my grade, and we will here in a second, of what the healthiest fats are in general, just know this. Know that if you get it from some source that is not processed in nature, that fat comes from that. Whether it's really good meat that is grass-fed, grass-finished, right? Because that's the natural way that the cow would eat, right? So it makes sense that if you have the one that ate all the natural stuff, good in, good out, it's probably going to be better for you. It is true. Look at pasture-raised eggs, eating worms and bugs and grubs and ticks and things like that instead of just grain. They produce more nutritious eggs. If you're getting things that come right from nature, as close to the source as possible, as minimal processing as you can find, not processed at all, it's going to be okay. All right, so it's going to be okay. So just know that, and don't worry about heart disease. Don't worry about all this other shit. All right, just know that. Okay, we got that. But what's really interesting is, one, my grade of what the top fats are, but more importantly, I would examine grades as the good, okay, and worse fats in terms of your increased risk or lower risk for colorectal cancer. And that's why I wanted to talk about this tonight, because I was reading a long article that Examine put out. I don't want to even come close to summarizing the whole thing. It's just a crazy amount of information. But Very, very interesting stuff. And the gist of it was, they have, in terms of colorectal cancer risk, grading of low risk, unclear / neutral. It's like we don't really know, right? And then higher risk for colorectal cancer, which is obviously the worst. Low risk, marine fats, EPA and DHA. Find those in the fatty fish, again, like we were talking about. Between low risk and unclear, or like neutral, we're not really sure. Saturated fat, actually, was next. So saturated fat they just came out with a study, is why they did this whole long thing on it. At least examine, summarize the study. That saturated fat intake was associated with a lower risk of colorectal cancer. But other studies have shown that's not the case. Another study did show that it was associated with a lower risk. Another one said neutral. They put it between low risk and neutral. Not necessarily low risk by the research, not necessarily neutral, it's in between. So really second best here, which I thought was just pretty cool, right? Because people always villainize saturated fat. MUFAs and PUFAs. What is a MUFA? Monounsaturated fatty acid. PUFA, polyunsaturated fatty acid. Multiple double bonds, right? PUFA. I believe that's why it's called that. Think back to chemistry. They were neutral, okay? They were neutral or unclear. MUFAs and PUFAs. Now keep in mind that omega-3s are PUFAs, but not all PUFAs are omega-3s. Omega-3s are the EPA, DHA, the marine fats. So what was the best? Actually, those are a form of PUFA, right? So those ones are really good, but not all PUFAs are amazing. And if you're going to pick between MUFAs and PUFAs in general, they're both good, right? And it depends on the food. Again, it's not processed and blah, 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 blah. So I wouldn't really worry about MUFAs or PUFAs. Just like unsaturated fat is typically better, you know? And the best type of fat you can get is from fish, is from seafood, right, for the most part. So, and nuts and seeds, and avocado, and extra virgin olive oil. We know that. That has a lot of MUFAs, extra virgin olive oil. Higher risk for colorectal cancer was industrial trans fats. Industrial trans fats. Not regular trans fats that you find in food. Industrial trans fats, again, you know, at least one example would be hydrogenated vegetable oils, and we use the example of soybean oil. Sunflower oil sometimes is too, and other seed oils and things like that. Soybean oil is a common culprit, right? They put it in all this shit. You go to restaurants, they use a lot of soybean oil, often. It's cheap, gets the job done. So what natural foods have trans fats? Right? If we're not going to villainize natural trans fats, you know, then we had better name some foods that are nutritious, natural, and healthy that contain them. Well, it's mostly meat and dairy products. Only a few of them. Things like beef, lamb, milk, butter, and cheese. Those have natural trans fats. But they're in such small amounts. And it's really not going to have a negative effect on your health. At least it shouldn't. Right? So now finally, what is Wend Wellness's grade of fats? In general, colorectal cancer, heart health, everything. Brain health that you can get from food. Well, again, non-processed, number one, before you remember any order. Comes from whole food. Close to the source as possible. Go out and kill it and eat it. You know, boost your testosterone to kill it also. Don't go killing animals. Animals are good. So, number one, marine fats. Definitely have to take the number one spot in my eyes by the research. In general, EPA and DHA. Eat those fatty fish. Right? Number two, is it saturated? No. MUFAs and PUFAs, I would say, in general, I would put it number two. So, monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats, things like extra virgin olive oil, avocado, nuts and seeds, all that kind of stuff. Really good natural fats, right? So those would be number two. Number three is saturated fat. Saturated fat is not the devil, but it's not necessarily the best type of fat that you can have. It's pretty much right there in the middle. Next, I would grade trans fats that are natural trans fats. From that beef, lamb, milk, cheese, butter we were talking about. Right? Those are, you know, maybe saturated fat. They're pretty even with saturated fat. I wouldn't really be concerned. The worst for sure, industrial trans fats. by far. Stay away from seed oil. Stay away from processed oils. Anything that's hydrogenated, right? That stuff is garbage. It increases inflammation, your risk for chronic disease. It's really, really bad. So I hope that we could clarify your view, your thoughts, and your perception of what is healthy in regards to fats. And maybe they're not all created equal, but the fact that you should get them just from real whole food is definitely the first thing you should be thinking. That's what we got for you guys. Who do we got on here? Let's see what's up. To everybody. And we're going to go, because it's late now. We were reading a lot before. KG, how you doing? Extroverts Novel is great. Have a shot every day. Clara, how are you? Ralph, Pasquale, Meg, Ash, Goldilocks, what's up? Sabrina, I appreciate that. Tusor, Paul, what's up, man? You're a beast. Kim, Danny, what's up, dude? See you tomorrow. Life Wrangler, SBU Bowling, Sylvia, what's up, baby girl? And McCreary, Kyle. As for now, that's all we got for you, folks. We'll see you tomorrow, baby. Not sure where, not sure when, but we'll see you then. Have an awesome rest of your night. Thank you so much, and happy When Wellness. See ya.